All right, so thank you for joining us with our study abroad in Scotland or Ireland info session. So I'm going to start off. I always like to start off with this slide because there is a lot of confusion, and I completely understand that we have a lot of different names for this region, right? We call it the British Isles, Great Britain, the UK. Sometimes people say Scotland or Ireland, and so and then there's Northern Ireland, and so I just like to make sure to show this map. It is totally okay if you're like, I want to study somewhere in here and I don't know where, that's totally fine. But I just wanted to cover really quickly where we are talking about is Scotland, which is north of England. And then we're also going to be talking about Ireland, where you do not have any programs in Northern Ireland. But basically that we're talking about that green region, and then we're going to talk about the top of that purple region of Scotland today. If you are interested in England, which includes London, of course, you are more than welcome to join. We have an info session just on that. I made this a separate info session just because there are really unique properties to Scotland and Ireland that don't apply to England itself. And then there's properties about England that are separate. So I did separate these out purposefully. Okay, oops, what happened? Let's see, let's go back. All right. So there are 3 different ways that you can study abroad. And so I'm going to review them all right now. And I'm going to also explain like what are the most common use cases for them. So a lot of students think that like, oh, you just study abroad and you just sign up and that's it. And you actually have a lot of options, and that's great, but that also can be intimidating. So I'm first going to cover the UCEAP program. And to be honest, most of you are going to go on a UCEAP program. It is a hands down our most popular option. Majority of our students that study abroad from UC San Diego choose that option for a number of reasons. The huge one is that you can use all of your financial aid. So basically all the financial aid you accrue at UC San Diego pretty much always follows you. There are a few exceptions, but I would say the lion's share of it does follow you, which is awesome. The other nice thing is that you automatically earn UC units and grades. So this program is a part of the UC system. So from a transcript perspective, we look at it almost like if you were to study at another campus. So for example, if you were to study at UCLA, you would be treated exactly the same as when you go on a UCEAP program. So what that means is that your grades will automatically populate into your UCSD transcript. You don't have to work with admissions about getting readmitted. It's just everything's integrated within the UC system. You also have some quality reassurances, because obviously we're not going to partner with any universities that haven't done a thorough investigation with. And so so there are some major advantages of the UCEAP program, which is why it is our most popular option. And I'm going to be focusing most of this presentation on the UCEAP programs because that is what most of you will do. But that said, I think it's important that you always know what your other options are in case you wanted to explore them. So the first one is the Global Seminars program, which is only in the summer. Okay. So only in the summer. You take 2 courses. You do not get a choice of what those 2 courses are. It's basically you take those 2 courses and that's it. It is led by one of our UCSD faculty members. So if you want to develop a really good relationship with one of the faculty members, then the global seminar option would be good for you. But just know it is limited. Again, we do have an option in London. We have an option in, we do have some other options in Dublin. We do have some options in the areas that we're talking about in the UK. But just, again, know that they are limited. So that is an option for you. The last option is an OAP program. So that's Opportunities Abroad program. And I would say like I said, majority of you are going to just go on a UCEAP program because it's, to be honest, a better deal. It's subsidized by the university. Your grades pipe in. You don't have to work with admissions. There's less paperwork. But there are some situations where an OAP program would be a good fit. So that would be if you don't meet the eligibility requirements. So most often that's GPA. So each one of the programs, when I talk about the programs, I'll review them, but sometimes you don't meet the GPA requirement. And so then an OAP program could be great for you. The other one would be is if you want to go to a country not offered by UCEAP. So for example, we don't have any programs in Wales. We also don't have any programs in Northern Ireland. So if you wanted a program specifically, let's just say in either of those areas, then you would have to use an OAP program. The last one situation is, like I said, the OAP programs tend to be more expensive because they're not subsidized by the UC system. But if you are an out-of-state student or international student, you're already paying that non-resident fee, then at that point it's kind of a wash. So it may make sense for you to do that. But that said, there's literally thousands of OAP programs. They range in quality. And I would say if you want to go on an OAP program, definitely come in for drop-in advising and we can discuss further. But like I said, just know that you do have those three options, but because most of you are going to go on a UCEAP program, I'll focus this presentation on that. Okay, so a couple of notes about studying in the UK, just in general. And I should say UK and Ireland. But these are just some general guides that are some differences I like to point out, and it's really going to come into play later on the presentation, and then it'll make more sense. So the first one to keep in mind is that in the US system, and I'm talking about mostly like the undergraduate system, you could apply to as many schools as you want, right? There's no cap. Just know that in the UK so typically we call them US colleges. In the UK, usually they're called university. So remember in the UK that they typically, you can't apply for more than 5 universities. The UCAS system is just basically the way that they apply. So there is a more of this like higher, there's a more of a limited selection. So just keep that in mind because you may hear that. The other thing is that the applications and fees are centralized. And so basically, in the US system, basically the admissions office lets you in. So no faculty ever, when you applied for UCSD, no faculty like read your application, right? It was all handled through our admissions office. Over there, the faculty members are responsible for admission. So it is quite a difference there. I will say that a lot of students have mentioned that faculty have a different level of investment because they are literally a part of the application process from day one. So it just is a different type of relationship. So that's just something I like to mention. The other thing to clear up a lot of confusion is the number of years. So typically our bachelor's degree takes 4 years. Typically in the UK, it takes about 3 years. So that's a difference right there. The other thing is a master's degree here usually takes 2 years, and over there it'll take 1 year. So what that means is that when you are looking at upper division courses, even though they're listed at undergraduate level, they're going to be much more specialized and much more advanced. So I would say as a broad brush thing, again, there are exceptions, but usually when you're looking at upper division course, let's just say at Trinity College, that would be more like what we would consider a master's degree level course. And so just keep that in mind when you're selecting your coursework. And then of course, our PhD system is a high number of years more as well. The really important thing is that how you're assessed and the way things are taught. I would say that in general, again, this does range, of course, by which university you are attending. But I would say that most of the study is going to be really lecture based. And then basically your entire grade, not your entire grade, but like majority of your grade is just going to be your final. Versus at the US system, we typically have like quizzes and midterms and like maybe you have a paper, you just have these other components throughout the quarter that all add up to your grade. And so you're going to be seeing a lot less of that no matter where you're studying in the UK or Ireland. The other big difference is that we have no cost constraint on cost of tuition. We can charge whatever we want. And as you all know, the fees for students is quite high versus over there, they are under a different system. And so it is subsidized by the government. And so they are only paying £9,000 typically per year. So the cost is just a lot less. And again, I'll talk about that later. Now, that doesn't mean that your fees are already less because you are considered an international student. But that does play into when we talk about rankings of the different universities and we're choosing between the universities. I will mention that again. The last thing to keep in mind is that you'll hear, as you research universities, you'll hear something called Russell Group a lot, and students always asking what that means. Think of it similar to like their version of an Ivy League. Okay, so whenever you hear Russell Group, not that typically you'll hear that in the Ivy League, and usually you hear that more in the like universities based in England, but you do just hear that as you're anecdotally researching. So I like to make sure to cover that here. I'm gonna start off talking about the Scottish universities, and then I'll move on to Ireland. So I will get to Ireland. So hang in there if you're there for Ireland. But I just have a couple of notes about specifically the Scottish universities that does apply to the Irish. Some do, some don't. So the main thing to keep in mind is that, as I'm mentioning, even their coursework is much more specialized in general, because remember, they're only there for 3 years. So they don't have as many GE requirements as you would have at, for example, UCSD. So their studies are like really, really specific and focused and high level. So basically think of their version of lower division as our version of upper division. And then their version of upper division as our version of graduate level. And so I like to make sure to say that if you ever meet with an advising, I probably will repeat that to you as a reminder, because we do sometimes see a GPA drop with students. I think it is really important for students to know eyes wide open as you're planning your schedule and you're considering what university. So if you're already going to a competitive university, and then on top of that, taking what is considered graduate level, let's just say a significant number of courses, that's a pretty heavy schedule. So just keep that in mind. And again, those upper division courses are really specialized, and I highly recommend that you only take upper division courses if you have a significant amount of coursework you've already taken from that topic area. I would not take a new topic area of an upper division course, just straight in. Again, there's a lot more independence, so you're not going to have these quizzes or midterms or things to kind of keep you updated. So the good thing is, a lot of students say that it's easy to like travel and pick up. If you want to hop over to Spain, great. There's no harm, there's no like midterm that you're missing, for example. But what that means is that you can fall behind really quickly. So just keep that in mind. Again, there's lots of different styles. You are going to be feeling like a lot more independent, and you have to be self-motivated. Now, that is not true worldwide. There are other universities where they're much more similar to our style of learning. But I would say in general, within this region, it tends to be much more independent. So just keep that in mind. They also have something called lectures and seminars. So think of seminar as like similar to your like discussion sessions. And so you have like your large lecture groups, and then you have your small groups. And again, they're called them seminars. Faculty are called lecturers, so just keep that in mind. They do not host office hours, but you can basically always ask them to make an appointment, and that's not a problem. But a lot of students are like waiting for them to share office hours, or say like, oh, they just don't offer them. So keep that in mind. The other thing is that most instructors will many different instructors can teach one course, and that is not a common practice that we have in the US. So usually you sign up and that one instructor teaches everything, versus you may see like when, you have your psychology course and there's 3 different lecturers teaching that. So just keep that in mind. Past exam papers are usually available for you to prepare, which is great. But again, most of your grade is usually going to be your final exam, so just keep that in mind. And then the other thing is that exam dates aren't flexible. So you will, when you get there, you may hear about students doing something called retake exams or resits. And you are not eligible to do that, unfortunately. So under what you are under with UCEAP, you do have to just take it one time. And that's true for pretty much any program that you go on as an international student. You are not eligible to do the resit. So just keep that in mind. All right. I promise I'm going to talk about it. So I'm going to go past that. So really quickly, if you want to learn more about all the programs beyond Scotland and Ireland, we will be having something called Expo on October 23rd. It'll be right there on where the farmers market is in Town Square. So feel free to come out with us. We'll have all the advisors out there and a lot more information and a lot of sessions. Okay, 2 more quick things I'm going to cover, and then I promise I will talk about the ZAC programs. So as I mentioned with UCEAP, pretty much all of your financial aid will follow you, which is really great. So that's the number one question that I always get. With OAP programs, some of your financial aid may follow you, but not all. And global seminars can be tricky because that's summer aid and that's a whole different ball game. So if you are interested in that, I would say meet with the global seminars team. The last thing is that, yes, we do have scholarships. We award a lot of scholarships. We definitely encourage you to apply. You'll find a full list of all the scholarships on our website, on studyabroad.ucsd.edu. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is that full disclosure, Scotland and Ireland is one of the most expensive programs. The R ones are more expensive, but it's still on the higher end. I just want to make sure if the cost is an issue for any of you, but you still want to study abroad, we do have programs in other countries where students actually save money than if they were to go to UCSD. So it actually just costs less to study abroad there. And so we do have a range of options. The programs do very much range, but just know that you are in a session for a program, looking at an area that is on the higher end of the price. So just know there are other options as well. Okay, and then we also talked about this. So this is just a map of just some major cities. So but we kind of already talked about this. I'm gonna go through this really quickly. Just keep in mind. So for Scotland, St. Andrews. I don't know if you can see my clicker. Oops. St. Andrews is up on the top. Edinburgh, which is like the big star in Scotland, is right there. Glasgow is on just west of there, and then in Ireland, the big ones to remember is that Dublin is where this star is. Galway is all the way to the west, and then Cork is south of there. And so I'm going to be referring to all of those cities, and so that way you have like somewhat of a idea of when I'm talking about, where all of these locations are. Okay, so here are the specific programs. Because usually this is where what you came here for, right? To learn about like what are the different ways you can study abroad. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to mention, sorry, this is my last, I rearranged these slides, I forgot that. So when we're talking about different university programs, the quick reminder I want to remind you of is that there aren't that many universities. This particularly pertains to Ireland, but also somewhat in Scotland. There aren't that many universities. I'm going to cover most of them in this presentation, not all of them, but the most popular ones. It's very different than it is here. So here we have a very clear prestige ranking, right? So pretty much everyone would say that, for example, UC Berkeley would rank differently than UC Merced. Nothing against either of those, or but that is just kind of the reality that most people would rank them, one higher quote unquote prestige wise than the other. You sort of have that, but you sort of don't in Scotland and Ireland. And so the example I'd like to give is, for example, if you were to look at the Irish Parliament, okay, if you were to look at our Congress, majority of the people working there went to an Ivy League university, pretty much majority would. But I would say, for example, if you look at Irish Parliament, they went to all of the universities. There isn't that much of that stigma, oh, this one's way better than the other. All of the universities are supplemented by the government according to what they need. And so it's because there aren't that many of them, it's hard for one to race ahead of the other, versus in our system in the US, and then I would say also the ones in the UK with London mostly, a race around England. There's so many of them that there's an opportunity for more competition, and so that's something else to just keep in mind when we're talking about the different universities. Okay, so I'm not sure if anyone is not included. I'm going to, sorry, let me just mute someone really quick. All right, there we go. All right, so we have 2 summer programs in Scotland. If you want, there's only 1 summer program in Scotland. We used to have 2. So if you want to study abroad in Scotland during the summer and do research, then I highly recommend the summer research program in Glasgow. So it is affiliated with the university there. You don't have to have a 3.0. And there are only 3 fields of study. So life science, chemistry, and history. If you want to do research outside of those topics, I do not recommend this program for you. I know a lot of you asked about housing. And so for housing, the program does arrange an apartment for you, which is quite nice. And basically the entire program is just you doing research. Okay, so there's a really, really cool research projects, but again, it is only limited to life science, chemistry, and history. I keep Glasgow summer physics on here because a lot of times students ask me about that program, and I want to make sure that you know that only UCLA and UC Irvine students are able to take that program right now. We are working very hard to get UCSD on that list, but unfortunately we still don't have that on board. So if you are interested in that program, sit tight. If you are, hopefully we'll have it on board by next year. Okay, and then if you wanted to study abroad during the year, here are all of your options. So you have 3 different universities to choose from. I have 2 on this slide and 1 more on another slide. So I'm going to start with the University of Edinburgh. I would say this is definitely the most popular university. This is definitely the most world-renowned in general, internationally. Now that said, in most like UK-based ranking systems, usually Glasgow actually beats Edinburgh, but I would say in the international rankings, and what's most universally well known, I would say, is probably University of Edinburgh. You do have a 3.0. You can be a sophomore, junior, senior. There's a fall option, a spring option, and a year option. So really quickly, I'm going to talk about spring. So if you want to go during the spring, so internationally, most universities are in semester systems. So their spring semester spans both our winter and spring quarter. So if you want to study abroad during spring quarter, you do have to take both winter and spring off. So just keep that in mind. But basically, Edinburgh is really, really great for science and engineering. I'd say like definitely world renowned. If you are an engineer in any type, this is definitely a great university for you. The other thing that's unique is a lot of students who are interested in veterinary medicine can take veterinary science courses. So you can only do that during the fall, but that's something that UCSD does not offer, that University of Edinburgh does. They have a lot of Scottish courses, which a few others do as well. And then also students are studying art. That we do have access to the Edinburgh College of Art, where they can take a reciprocal courses from there, which is quite nice. And there's also internship options. I would say Edinburgh is smaller. People would typically say it is a little bit more touristy, but it is beautiful and very scenic. And very picturesque. So if that's what you're looking for, that would be a good option for you. University of Glasgow. So again, I would say the differences between University of Glasgow is I would say University of Edinburgh has a lot more international students. University of Glasgow is going to have much more Scottish students. And so a little more local. Glasgow is just a much bigger city. So if you want like more of a nightlife, you want more restaurants, you just want more options, Glasgow would be a great choice for you. Again, similar GPA requirements, otherwise similar housing arrangements, similar requirements, in other words, but they do have a lot more robust. So even though there are Scottish courses at University of Edinburgh, there's a lot more of them and a lot more diverse options at Glasgow if you are interested in anything Scottish, I would say, or folklore, Irish, that sort of thing. Oh, you know what? I just realized this is not, I'm sorry. I will, sorry, this is not, so this is not so they do have the College of Arts, but they do not have this music program. So I'm sorry, this slide is incorrect. That said, there are research and independent studies options available. So I do apologize about that. But it is, again, ranked as one of the top universities, and it does have a very vibrant city life, like I mentioned. The last one in Scotland is University of St. Andrews. And so I would say if you want like a really, really, really rural experience, students call it the bubble. They refer to the bubble all the time just because it is so far out. They're very well known because that's where Prince William and Kate Middleton had met. They both went to university there. And so there's like literally like 2 or 3 major streets. So basically the whole town is a university. But if you want that small town feel, this would be a great university for you. The other thing is that they have the lowest student to staff ratio in all of Scotland for sure, and probably most all of the UK. And so you will get a lot of attention. They'll definitely get to know your faculty intimately, which is kind of like the opposite of the UCSD experience. Same requirements as everything else, but again, I would say this one would be great if you really want that like kind of small town feel. Especially if you're a psychology major, I would say that they have a lot of courses on like research design analysis, which is great for grad school. They also have a couple of interdisciplinary courses where it spans a lot of different topics. So it's not like just engineering and just one type of topic. And then they also have this really cool program called the Academic Families, where basically the faculty and then like people like in the academic field will give you some mentoring. So that's really great for like future career. And a lot of students really enjoy that program. So again, so for Scottish universities, I would say the biggest difference that most students are going to feel is like big city, Galway, medium city, Edinburgh, maybe slightly tourist, really, really rural, small city, St. Andrews. So that, you know, there are other differences between the campuses and whatnot, but I would say that's probably the biggest stark difference between those universities. Okay, as for Irish universities, we have, similar to Scotland, we have our Dublin chemistry program, where you basically get 2 quarters worth of organic chemistry in 8 weeks. So you take 2 4-week blocks. So you take basically course number 1 and then course number 2 after that. I've listed what requirements it satisfies, so just keep that in mind. Again, it's only offered in the summer. You do have to be at least a sophomore. You do have to have a 2.5 GPA. You will be based in University College Dublin. And the program does arrange housing for you. And I've listed on here like what your exact schedule would be. So there's 4 2-hour lectures, there's 1 1-hour problem workshop, there's 2 1-hour tutorials, and then there's a 3 3-hour lab. And I purposely put this on here to emphasize this is an intense program. So a lot of students think like, oh, that'll be great. I'll do OChem, I'll get that requirement out of the way, and I'll be able to, travel and do all these things. And it's pretty intense. So just keep that in mind if you decide you want to do that program. Again, if you see the Dublin Summer Physics program on the website, that's only available at UCLA and UC Irvine. Unfortunately, we aren't able to participate quite yet. And so, but I want to make sure you know in case you do see that on there. But you do have the option of the Dublin Summer Chemistry program. Okay, the other unique program that we have in Ireland is the Irish Parliament program. And so this is really great if you're in any way interested in political science and public policy, any of those government, any of those types of fields. And basically, you will be taking courses both at the National University of Ireland and the Institute of Public Administration. And you will literally work in Parliament, which is like amazing. And so you basically have an internship where it's 2 days a week in Parliament. And then the rest of the time, you'll be taking these 3 courses: History of Modern Ireland, Modern Irish Literature, and Irish Society and Politics. The other really great thing about this program is that you have the option of a homestay. So you get to know our local family, you're staying with them, which is very unique, as you can see from all these other programs. Usually you're staying in a dorm or an apartment. This is the only one that offers a homestay option. It is offered both fall and spring, and you do have to be a junior. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and so now I'm going to talk about the options for different universities within Ireland. So like I said in the beginning, it's not like, one may be more internationally recognized, but I would say in general, as for quality of education, in general they're pretty more neck and neck than we're used to in our US systems. And so that's just something to keep in mind. Now, that said, which one's most internationally recognized is probably going to be Trinity College. And that's probably the one that most of you have already heard about, already know about, because we are international. But like I said, if you look at the Irish Parliament, if you look at like any other area of high esteem there. They go to they're from like all the different universities. So and most of them will say like they're pretty common, they're pretty neck and neck. So but Trinity does have the highest GPA requirements, so keep that in mind. You do need a 3.1. You also do need to be a junior to study abroad there. You do arrange your own housing. So when we say self-arrange, is similar to UCSD. So if you are, let's say, junior or senior at UCSD, UCSD is like, go find a place to live, and it's similar to that. Now that said, UCEAP will offer some support. They will give you some suggestions of places that more commonly students like to live in, but you are arranging it yourself. Obviously, there's Irish language and literature. The really unique thing is if you want to go into nursery or midwifery in any way, you can take courses in that. It is not practice-based, meaning you're not going to be doing hands-on work with patients, but you can still get some of that practical or some of that academic knowledge under your belt. So that's really, really popular, especially those interested in nursing. They have a really, really great Near and Middle Eastern Studies department. So if you're interested in any topics there, I highly recommend this program. And they also have a really cool E3 STEM program. And basically what that is engineering, environmental studies, and emerging tech kind of combined, and like really investigating that intersection between them. A lot of the courses within that program offer field trips. You're meeting with industry people. So it's a little more of a robust education way to educate yourself than the typical like lecture style. And then this Trinity is located in the city center, so just keep that in mind. There are advantages of that. So obviously, like, you're only in the middle of everything, but that also means that housing can be more difficult. It can be harder to commute. It can be more expensive. So just keep those things in mind. Typically, those who are interested in Trinity are also interested in University College Dublin, which is why I put these two on the same slide, because this is the other one that is also located within Dublin. So I would say that the big thing to keep in mind is that, again, Trinity College is located in the city center. University College Dublin's located like just outside the city center. And so again, there's pros and cons with that. But that's probably like the big difference. There are a lot more like Irish focused coursework here if you than there are in Trinity. So that's kind of another difference. If you are a sophomore, University College Dublin is kind of the only option for you if you want to go to Dublin. So keep that in mind. Trinity only accepts juniors. But I would say those who want to study, most UCSD students choose this option if they want to study like animal science, veterinary medicine, agriculture, nutrition, all of those types of topics. They have a really robust program for. So University College Dublin would be a great choice for that. There are also a good number of courses with field trips, which is quite popular as well. And then there's also research and independent study options at University College Dublin, whereas there aren't nearly as many at Trinity College. They also have a really brand new world-renowned engineering facility. So if you are an engineer, that could be another really great choice for you. Okay, and then I have these two because they are the two that are outside of Dublin. So you have Galway and you also have Cork. And so I put these two on this slide because those who like don't want to be in Dublin typically know and are then choosing between these two. And so the main requirements are pretty much the same. Again, they're both 3.0. They're both, you could be sophomore, junior, senior. They all have fall, spring, year options. The housing is pretty much the difference. But you know, I would say Galway, if you want like a really, really small city vibe, this would be a good choice for you. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is the most affordable option of all the programs. This is the one that is the most affordable. So that is probably the biggest draw for this particular program. Some students also really like the service learning course. It's called Philosophical Thinking with Children, and basically you get to work in the local elementary schools, and a lot of students really enjoy that. So if you want to go into education and want more hands-on work, that or public service or anything like that, that could be a really good option for you. But keep in mind, it is a very small city. With Cork, this was, I'm sorry, the text of from the other one. So this is, so again, you need 3.0, you need to be at least a sophomore. There are a lot of courses in Irish history. So if you are wanting to like a deep dive into Irish history, Irish folklore, that sort of thing, I definitely would recommend Cork for you. You can get, this is the program where you get that 1-year specialization in Irish traditional music. So we get a lot of music students who are interested in that. And then again, there's also research and independent study options here. But again, keep in mind that there's a small city vibe. So if that's what you're interested in, that's a great option. Okay. I already mentioned that we're going to have a study abroad fair on the 23rd in Town Square. So please feel free to come, and we would be happy to have you and meet with you. I'm going to review the application process really quickly, just because if you want to go, you have to apply. So there are actually 2 different applications that you need to fill out. So the first is Triton's Abroad, which is our UC San Diego based application. And then there's a UCEAP application, which is the UC-wide one. Remember, you do need to fill out both, and you do need to fill out both before the deadlines. And so keep that in mind. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I have, and then I already talked about academics. The last thing I'm going to end with is drop-in advising. So we offer drop-in advising on Monday afternoons, Thursday afternoons, and Friday mornings. You're welcome to come anytime. We can talk about your specific situation. If you select the UK or Ireland for a semester or a year, you will automatically get routed to me. My name is Emily. You also can just meet with Emily, or select meet with Emily, and then you'll get routed to me as well. We do have a get started module, Canvas module that you can join that will kind of goes over a broad brush the application process and whatnot. But I would say, don't worry about the application process as much as you might think. For your programs, for everything that we're talking about in this session, there's no essays, there's no nothing, that would be a big hurdle. Most of the application is pretty demographical information. And so most students can finish it in less than an hour. The other thing that I want to remind you all about is that we have the virtual advising center in the back. And so if you have a question, feel free to send us a message. I would say if your question can be answered in a sentence, go ahead and send it. If you if I need to write paragraphs, at that point, just come to drop-in advising, because I'll just respond to you with a question saying, or response saying, just come to drop-in advising. And that way we can have a conversation about everything. All right. So I'm going to just really quickly stop the recording. Oops.